The lesson.
Oh yeah.
Got Headlock after hours in the studio. Thanks very much, man.
No worries, man.
Now, I don't know if you remember. You would. We did this.
Yeah, we did.
It's like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah, it was a while back.
It
Who was even with it? It was Chris and Hamish with me?
was you and Hamish.
Was Chris here?
Nah, it was just you and Integer.
Oh, was it?
And it was when the studios were different.
Yeah. Wasn't and no Java.
Nah, it was just the two. It was just the two. From memory, it was just the two of you. And
what's your name?
Fresh FM.
Yeah.
It was the two of you, and I think, dude, that was like the first 3 interviews that we ever filmed.
Yeah, you never used it either.
Nah, because the footage, like,
right. I don't even know that we said anything worth listening to.
No, I can't remember because it was a while ago, but I just remember the footage was shaky. It was in the early days.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming
right.
back.
Yeah.
And I guess the reason, to bring you back is because, you're a member of After Hours. After Hours was part of Certified Wise.
Mm-hmm.
And just in general, a pretty, pretty iconic crew from South Australia.
Yeah.
You guys had your hand, on a few shows, a few releases there. I remember seeing you guys. I think the first time I ever seen you guys maybe was like at a Blackwood RSL or something like that, like early days.
Were we even performing or were we just drinking?
Well, I'll be honest with you, man. I've got a feeling that you was meant to be performing and you ended up just drinking. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, man.
Wow.
I could probably name a couple of shows like that.
So it could have been one of those, man.
But that's not our fault.
It never is. But so I remember that. And I also remember when you guys did the Hoods when they just popped off and they did the gig at Thebby. It was After Hours, Funkoars, Stain, then the Hoods.
That was a cool show, man. That was probably like the most people I think we ever performed in front of.
It have to be.
Leeching off of the energy of someone else's audience. It's just like, this is cool by proxy, you know what I mean? Like,
well, you guys had the opening slot, so you, from memory.
Yeah, it was. We were one of the first couple.
Yeah,
of I couldn't tell you where.
I remember those 3 acts were on. That Stain was obviously on. I remember Reflux did the DJing for you guys as well as the Oars. And then I also remember it was like the first gig that had pyrotechnics. Like all this crazy shit. We
didn't get that.
No. No, but fuck, it was epic to see. I remember that shit, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool, man. That was a good little era. Like, when those guys were blowing up. I don't want to talk about, someone else like it was, but just to be around it, you know what I mean? It was just like, wow, as if this shit's happening.
Yeah. Especially with dudes that like, you've grown up with and
Yeah. Like, I mean, they were always like, like the best. They always had the best show. Their songs were like, the best. So yeah, they were always like the pinnacle of what we could be. Do you know what I mean? And so watching them was always like, a learning experience, but also just cool as shit to be around.
Yeah, man, I can imagine. And the other, maybe even before all that, that might have been the first time I seen After Hours live, but I remember hearing you on the radio.
Was this before Premium Blend? Or just
no, I think the first time I heard yourself was on Premium Blend.
Yeah, would have been. I don't think we ever got on any other radio shows.
Not that I remember. I remember Madcap was doing something before Premium Blend, but
he had In the Shade.
Yeah, so it was the same station.
Yeah, 93.7. Yeah.
And then, so from memory, was you were hosting with Kirk, so you and Kirk were hosting. Reflux was on the decks.
Mm-hmm.
You'd always or often have guests come through.
Yeah.
Funkoars were often in there.
Yeah.
I remember Motions came through.
Yeah.
a few times, and you guys would rap, and man, that sounded like the most unrehearsed.
Dude, it was wild. You know how much effort Kirk put into getting us that radio show as well? Like, you know, he's writing letters and having meetings and like, you know, there's a gap in the market. There's people who like this, Australian, and we want our voice to be heard, and like framing it like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we finally got our foot in the door because they didn't really want that to happen. And there wasn't too much else going on radio wise at the time. I think like there might have been a small show somewhere, but I don't know that a lot of people were aware of it. But yeah, it was kind of a bit of a hole, and Kirk was like I'm going to give all the credit to him because I just sat back and let him do the work. And he finally got us in, and we had to do all this stuff like, I don't know if you had to do this with Fresh, but you have to like do like an apprenticeship sort of thing. Like you come into someone else's show and you go find them the music and the thing and take the phone calls. And we did all that, like the midnight request show. We finally got our show, and then we just fucked it all up. I was like, yeah, come in, get drunk.
So, I mean, I don't think I ever went in when you were hosting. I remember towards the latter end of it, once Kirk was just doing it on his own in the end.
Yeah, it got too hard for me with work. Like, I've doing it for a long time. I felt like a long time. I actually can't remember, but it was a few years. And it was kind of winding down a bit, it felt like. And it was killing me with work, and I was just like, man, I can't be up that late. And then I'm just over it. I'm done. Yeah,
after a while, anything, it gets pretty taxing.
Yeah.
It's a pretty full-on commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was pretty heavy, like in the sport sort of, like I got into, like the martial arts and shit like we were talking about before. I was pretty heavy into that. So I was like always like tired anyway. And then just staying up that late and then going to work and then, doing everything else. I was just like, man, this is too much for me.
Yeah.
And kind of got boring because we started having to behave.
So I want to, I guess, cover that bit first since we're already there.
Please do.
Is like, because to me it was a very memorable thing. Like we literally used to, I think it was 11 p.m. Time slots might have changed from when I caught on.
I think you're right.
Yeah, it was like 11 p.m. and it was, I think, on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Right, and we used to sit up and wait for it. Homeboys would be taping it.
Mm-hmm.
So I know dudes that have shoe boxes full of that shit.
Both do and don't want to hear them.
Yeah, I can understand why. And so, because I'll hear these tapes every now and then, man. And it's crazy to remember, at least just as an audience, before I knew any of you dudes, how much I used to sit there and just wait for the shit.
Yeah.
And I knew that there was going to be raps.
Yeah.
And dudes were going to be talking shit.
Yeah.
And usually, like, you want to hear I guess I wanted to hear the music. I was never really too much at that point in time to listen to people talk about shit.
No.
But you guys...
We'd talk some shit.
You talk mad shit, and it was so unrearst.
Oh, dude. We never came in with a plan.
It got so sloppy, but that's what made it entertaining. And I remember I'd hear some people be like, oh, man, sometimes I wish they'd just shut the fuck up and play the song. And I'd be thinking, sometimes I wish that they'd just keep talking shit.
Yeah, we would try, like, we were kind of aware of that as well, like, especially when we had guests, because we'd all be, like, drinking. You know what I mean? Like, so we're just partying, like, but at doing a radio show at the same time.
Yeah.
So we'd just be talking shit, and then we'd be like, man, we should probably play some music, eh? Like,
I think you guys, like, just would say that on air.
Yeah. Look, yeah. I'm going to, like, just segue. I'm going to take a little, loop around and come back to this. But, like, if you think that was bad, the worst / best sort of messed up radio show experience I think I ever had was we were in Perth and we're over there. The Hoods were performing. It would have been like 99, I want to say. And we just went over like, let's just go to Perth. Like, like just build some, like just meet these guys and just see what's up. Like Hoods are going, we're just going to come with them and party. And Hunter had us all on the radio show that he was doing. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, it was his show.
Yeah.
Him and Army. Right, and so we go to his radio show. It's this looked like a toilet block out in the sort of suburbs somewhere. We go in and we all just start partying, and then we forgot that the radio show was on. So we're all outside. Like we started freestyling and shit, and then people were coming going inside. Ended up outside, like just drinking dead air. Like every now and then someone would come in and just like start randomly scratching on the turntables like it was a house party, like put on a song or something, and then it'd just like.
Oh, when you get to the end of the record.
Yeah, we're just out there like, yeah. And I got this on tape. It is the wackest thing you'll ever hear. But I listened to it and I'm just like, you're like, oh man, that's such a good memory because we just like killed it. It was the worst thing ever.
Did you get the boot? Or
I know he got in trouble.
Yeah, you would.
He got in a lot of trouble. I don't know if he got the boot, but he definitely got in trouble, man. Yeah, rest in peace, Hunts, man. That's a fucking good memory. But yeah, so whatever we did, it was never as bad as that.
I remember seeing the photos.
Dead air, man.
I remember seeing the photos inside the studio, and it just looked bombed.
Yeah,
from head to toe.
Yeah, so they 93.7. Like come back to what we were doing. They had the padded walls and everything, and the artists had come in and sign it, and it was like a nice thing. Of course, artists. Like we'd just have people in, and there's just like we're gonna bomb this. It's like, just, keep it up there. You know what I mean? And they just bang. And then it's like, over there, bang. And then as the years went by, we just turned this thing where, like, musicians had signed their names into just, like, an alley. It was just bombed. You couldn't see, whoever's signature up there anymore.
Nah, man, I remember seeing the pictures and I was just like, how the fuck is that in a radio station?
They hated it.
They had to have.
Yeah, we got kicked off there a few times, but sort of suspended, not kicked off. Do you know what I mean? Like,
so I guess
month off, be good, and if you're good, you can come back, and then we'd be good, and then we'd be bad.
So what were some of the things that you would get kicked off for?
Language, because there would be just weird old people listening to the radio at that time, and I don't know why. We were right on after the folk show. The folk guy was cool as. I can't remember his name, but he was a legend. He was the nicest guy ever. But so you'd go from have like the folk music show to like
the Funkoars,
yeah,
the
to
after
us.
hours.
And I guess people just kept listening. There was a lot of just people with various other issues. I'm not going to sort of throw things out there that I don't know about, but just generally people with some mental health concerns listening to the radio at that time. And we got some wild phone calls, and then people would complain and stuff, and then the station would take us down. But they're very like hippie, free-spirited, like, and we were quite popular. So they were kind of, they hated us, but they also realised that, our show was one of the more engaging shows. But yeah, they did kick us off a few times. Mostly, swearing, the things that we were saying, because they were horrible, drinking, bombing the studio, maybe some things disappearing from the music library, just, you know what I mean? Like general mischief.
Wow. And so how many years would you have been, actively on there?
Oh man, that's a really good question that I cannot answer because I don't remember. No, 3, 4?
I was gonna guess like 3
7?
to 5 or
I don't
something.
know. Yeah.
But
I'm going between 3 and 5. I'm
Yeah.
pulling that number out of my anus. Someone will independently verify this and, false. I'm going to go to Snopes and get me. But
And then do you have, obviously, you remember the things that you got kicked off for. And I'm surprised. How many times in total do you think?
we got kicked off.
Yeah.
At least twice.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say at least twice.
It could have been 3.
I feel like if it was 3, we
You
probably
would've
would have
been
stayed
good.
kicked off.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it was more than once. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Wow. And then so on the flip, like, what are the standout positive memories? Like, for example, guests or ciphers.
It was so much fun. Like, we were being idiots. You listen to this and you're like, that's the most unprofessional thing I've ever heard in my life. Man, it was fun. You know what I mean? Because most of it was unscripted. It wasn't like, all right, tonight, and then this time you're going to do that. It was like, hey, you want to come to the radio show tonight? Yeah, sweet. And it's like, come down, bring booze. And we're just like, yeah, we'll play some music. We'll all be having fun. And then it's just like, you want to rap? Yeah, let's rap. And then just, chaos. And then, all right, we'll play some more music. All right, we'll rap again, whatever. Like, but some of the best ones was, I remember we had Stain DJing for a minute.
Oh.
And like his like freestyle radio DJ sets were better than most people's pre-planned club sets. Yeah. You know what I mean? He'd just like, I'm gonna chuck this one, chuck that one, beat juggle, and do this and do that. He'd just be sitting there like, this is good radio now, you know? Yeah, and yeah, it was just like you'd get people just come to the door, like, you know, you knock, 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 you go look at the door, it's like, oh, what's up? It's Motions or whoever, you know, like just someone who was like, yeah, I'm gonna come down to 3D. We've got a few random people that we kind of had to, you know,
yeah.
Sorry, bro, I don't know you, but yeah, like you just get mates just like, hey, what's up? And you're like, yeah, come in. What's the statute of limitations on all this? None of it's a crime. None of it's a crime.
Well, I remember...
It can't kick me off again.
I remember hearing Motions in there a few times.
Yeah, a lot of certified guys, but mostly like the Oars and Vents and whatever.
Yeah.
And we had the Hoods in there, and I think we had Delta at some point, maybe. No, I can't actually remember. I hope we did, because I like Delta. But yeah, and the Adroit guys, like basically anyone doing anything, we
at
was
that
just, like,
time.
come through. Yeah,
it was crazy. I remember like we did a gig in 02 at the Uni Bar, Flinders, and I think it was ozhiphop.com.
Yeah, man, that was the mothership.
Yeah, so I think maybe we posted it in one of the forums, and there was the radio forum.
Yeah.
And we were hoping that you guys would like plug it, and we were tuned in, and when you did, it was such a massive deal to us.
That's where we got our information from, mostly, because that's where everyone, that was the central hub.
Yeah,
you know,
I remember that shit so clearly, man. For dudes that like, you might not realize it, but for dudes, or maybe you do, but guys who were just fans. Yeah. Or who were doing elements of the art but weren't on that tier that you guys were on at the time.
Well, think about how many like good people, or, you know, at least people that you know about, kind of started off as just a forum member on that forum. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, that's how we met dudes like Vents and stuff like that, you know? It's just dudes on the forum. And then you'd get like, we're going to Melbourne, and be like, oh, let's catch up, you know, catch up with Pat Ho and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And it's just, you know, that was a good way to bring people together, because before that it was kind of, you know, how are you going to know people? Like, you know, we did that a little bit, but it's because we knew dudes who knew dudes, do you know what I mean? So you go to Melbourne, someone knows someone, and then, you know, you meet some people. But if you're like a young dude or whatever at that time, and you don't know anyone from anywhere else, like, it's hard to sort of build those relationships.
Yeah.
But if you got this place where it's just people talking smack about hip hop all day, you know, and it's just like, yeah, I'm coming to Melbourne. Oh man, catch up, you know. Well, yeah. So that was awesome. That was a good thing.
Yeah, it was, man. That was like right when MySpace era.
Yeah, spinning gifts and shit.
Now, you mentioned that you had the Hoods in there once, and man, I reckon it was like a couple years ago, my mate brought me the tape. Like, he's got the tape of that show.
I bet you, like, Suff would probably give you money to destroy that tape.
So, well, this is like 2 years ago, maybe 3, and I just remember like he's after his shift
it was a
work.
wild night, yeah.
And I don't remember what the raps were. I just remember hearing it and just going, "Wow, this is
like we were at the peak of fucking around that night." You know what I mean?
So do you remember that? Because
I remember it. Yeah.
So I guess because for me it's a memorable one because I remember my mates working at like the milk factory. And for some reason, I've ended up there after his shift, and we hopped in his car, and he still had the cassette deck.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oi, check what I found in this old shoebox." And I just remember being in the car just bugging out.
Yeah.
Because by this stage, you know, we're talking like this might have been 2016, 17. The Hoods are a phenomenal, you know, powerhouse.
I feel like that appearance on the radio show was before that, though.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It was long before that. So to hear that raw
man, I reckon somewhere I've got a tape of them on 93.7 in the shade with Madcap like before Matter of Time. You know what I mean? Like doing Back Once Again raps. Man, I hope I can find that tape. I'm going to go home and look for it.
Suffer probably give you money to get
rid of that. Give me money to get rid of that one. No, give me a nice bottle of wine. But you know what I mean? Like, so for all the people that were kind of listening to our deranged stupidity on the Premium Blend, like this is how we getting stuff. Like we were doing the same thing with like Derek's show. You know what I mean? Like him and Next and man, my brain is not working. But there were a couple of other people with that show as well. And we used to go and drive the car out and just sit in the car listening to that. And then when the Hoods were on that was like a big moment for us because it's like, oh man, these dudes, from Blackwood that we know are like on the radio show. This is wild, It's like, and and then you kind of, it's interesting that you then kind of get to be that. Do you know what I mean? Like you get to be the radio show that someone else is on and someone else is listening to, going, oh man.
Well, yeah, because now we're in that sort of position.
Yeah, now that's you, right?
And people are listening to our shit, and they'll be like, oh, we heard this, that, and the third, and like,
well, like, because when you're a young dude, like, especially doing that stuff, like any kind of just exposure is like, man, I'm getting somewhere. You know what I mean? I'm not just sitting in the park like rapping.
Yeah, things are happening.
Yeah, it's like this is progress. People are hearing this. If I'm good, maybe I'd do something else.
So I guess with that particular episode, can you walk us through the memory of like, that because I only came in once to your show, hey, when you were on
just the once.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't really want to like. I'm just trying to think what I can say that is, It's not that anything bad happened. I just don't want to be like, there's doing this or that or the other thing, especially when my memory's mad hazy.
Well, I guess the reason I ask is because for me as a listener,
standard Premium Blend night. We were drinking, we were freestyling, and we were fucking around, and we were just fucking around super hard. You know what I mean? Like Suffer was doing impersonations and voices and things. Do you know what I mean? Like it was that level of silliness. So yeah, I'm not going to be like, they were doing this or that or the other thing. It was just, we just went in on being dumb.
And you guys actually carried on like that for like the whole show, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like from memory, it wasn't like a 5-minute.
No, hell no. They were like guest hosting sort of
because
thing.
I remember when I was listening, my mate was like fast forwarding the tape.
Yeah.
So he's skipping all the music going, all right, now listen to it again.
Yeah.
And now that you say that, I remember, it was the commentary that was going on.
Just being silly.
But then they actually rapped on there as well.
They did, yeah. They did.
Yeah. For some reason, I remember the commentary more than the rap. Maybe that's why.
The commentary's sillier. You know what I mean? Like, there was the raps were always had elements of just being silly because people who kind of gave a shit would come in and like try to put on their best. Like, I'm going to do this sick rap and stuff. Most of the people we had on were just there to have fun.
Yeah.
And a freestyle was like, I don't hang around with people anymore in the, who are still freestyling, but. Back then, a freestyle was like you're just making it up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's still the go. Maybe it is.
Probably is here and there. Yeah, here and there.
But then it was like if you come with a written and you're saying your freestyle, it's like that's worse. You know what I mean? Like you'd be honest and go, I'm going to do this verse.
Yeah.
And people would be like, it's sick. But if you're like, I'm going to freestyle, and then you come with this perfect written, it's like, nah,
that was a no-go.
I see you. Like a shitty freestyle was better than like a pretending to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you could tell the difference.
Yeah, and like most freestyles, when you've had that much to drink, are pretty shitty.
Yeah. Wow. And then I guess other than the Hoods episode, is there another time? Because that was a standout one from my memory.
Yeah. We had some like remember like this is going to kill me. Oh, when Minus and Checkmate and Stuart, like all the hospice dudes came through and the Oars were there, that was a party, man. Like it was a
literal
like party. Like more people in the radio station than probably at most house parties. Like, we were just getting it done, and they were all rapping, and then like they were battling and stuff. That was a fun night, man. That was some wild shit.
I'm gonna have to speak to Homeboy, see if he's got.
Yeah, I've got a bit of the freestyle somewhere, like on an MP3.
Yeah,
like the bit where Minus and Sester are having a bit of a battle. That's funny.
Yeah, word.
Yeah, I haven't got the whole show of any of the shows.
People got them though.
They're out there,
cassette.
man. That's the thing you don't think about when you're doing that dumb stuff. Like, someone's recording this, and it's probably going to be around forever.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
10 years later, you're on a radio.
I should watch what I'm saying right now. This might be going on the internet. Once it's on YouTube, man,
it's on forever.
Yeah, that's it. Google owns it.
You guys, After Hours, dropped the demo before anything, which was late 90s.
Yeah, so I want to say that was like 99. Like, we spent probably like a while working on it, and we did that at Edit's mum's work, most of it, to start with, right? Because she was the only person we knew who had a computer that you could kind of do this stuff with. So we go down there and take like records or like recordings of records on tapes and plug them into the computer, and they had like some bootleg copy of something, and just record the loops from the tape. Or it was with Chris and Java would like get like dollar records or whatever, find loops they like, record it to a tape, take the tape to his mum's work, and then record it in there and like loop it up and like make a beat or whatever. And that's kind of how that started.
Wow.
And I think I'm scratching at the back of my brain here. It's a very long time ago, but I feel like it was Chris and Javo, Edits and Jugular to begin with, and then because obviously we're all mates and stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm going to rap on this. Do you want to do that too? I was like, yeah. And then we knew Intellect as well, and we're like, oh, do you want to get in on this? It's like, yep. So we start writing verses and stuff like that, and then Edit's got a little HP like piece of shit computer, like school special sort of thing.
Yeah, I know the one.
But it was like the one, and now we had a computer. We didn't have to go down the hill to the work and stuff. We just made it all in his bedroom, and like SM58, we got one of them from somewhere, and just made this demo. It's hot garbage, man. But the beats are actually pretty good. Like, don't listen to anything that's happening on top of the beats, but like considering how those beats were made, like, they're pretty good, man. Like, anyway, so we made this demo, and it was like, oh, all right, let's see what we can do with this. Because we're all, like, before that, it was just freestyling and parked. It's just how we all grew up. Like, go out and, Apex, Corinna Park, Blackwood Roundabout, wherever, just kick freestyles, with your boombox. And then we're like, oh, let's do it. Let's make a demo tape. And so we did. And we just kind of distributed it at shows and things, and just kind of got it out however we could, just to sort of, see what people said and see if we could, I don't know, do something else. And actually made its way over to like Melbourne and stuff, because went over there, I can't remember when, it would have had to been after the demo, so it must have been 99 or something like that. And PJ kind of hooked us up. Like, I went over with a bunch of dudes, and I met Reason and Pac D, and sort of PJ kind of introduced us, and I actually stayed at Reason's house. So shout out to Reason, man, because he didn't know me from a bar or so. He was just like, oh, you know PJ? Yeah. Crashing my joint, man. Like Pac D and that, and they just all looked after us, man. All these like legends in Melbourne. It's just, I was some kid. And I was just like, man, this is wild. And anyway, sort of one thing, the tape got amongst some of those dudes. I remember going to Trem's house for a barbecue, and he was like, oh, you did that tape. And he quoted some line off it. And I was like, yeah, how'd you know about that? And he's like, oh, I don't know, I just got it from so-and-so. And I was just like, man, and all right, next one we do better be better. Like, people are hearing this. But yeah, that's kind of how, that spread out, and we met a few of these people. And, back then it was like, it was a good time in that building bridges sort of space, I'm going to say. Like, because before then, when you're young, you kind of, the guys in your little area, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, like from around the city, but probably not too much further than Adelaide, unless you're a bit older or, you've been around. So, we're meeting all these dudes from like Melbourne, and then, when we went to Perth, we met all the Syllabolics crew and that. And then we're all like, you go there and you just become mates. And then it's like, all right, you come here, you come to Adelaide, man, and we'll look after you. And then they come, and then all of a sudden everyone's doing shows everywhere, and that's like Kirk and PJ and dudes like that had a lot to do with that. And that was awesome, man. That was sick. Because before then it was kind of like, you're here and they're there. And then it was just like, yeah, come over to Adelaide, man. Like, Culture of Kings, I had like half a Syllabolic staying at my mum's house, in the lounge room, just on the floor. It was sick, man. It was the dopest time. And then we're like, all right, we're going to do the next one. We're going to do a record. And it had to be a record. So, we saved some money. We started recording it. And same thing at Chris's house, like just on his computer. Got a better mic and like just slowly upgrading things, like better mic and a compressor and just, a small little mixing desk and thing. And then we did Different Rules Apply. And we would have done that sort of 99, 2000. We were sort of working on those songs. Sorry. And we dropped it. It would have came out start of 01. And we did the launch for that, and I wasn't too sure how many people were going to show up. It was at the Lion Arts. We'd done a few gigs and just sort of, like put us on wherever you can, and we'll do anything you can give us, and just did a few sort of small shows. And then we did the launch, and people turned out, and that was cool. I mean, it's not like, like a hood show or something, but for then it was, I don't know, what was it, 400 or 500 people or whatever. It was just like, shit, how do these people even know us? And it was a party. It was a good night. And that's when we kind of went, oh, all right, we can do some shit here.
Around that early 2000 period is where shit really did, the scene kind of started to open up, eh?
I reckon, yeah, that sort of 2000 to mid 2000s, it just kind of went.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people saw other people doing it and just went, well, why can't I? Like for us, we saw like when the hoods dropped Back Once Again, and holding this record in our hands, these guys that a little bit older than us, but that we knew and sort of were mates with. It's like, man, they did this. Like, this can be done. So we're looking up to them and seeing that they did it, and then you're just like, all right, let's just do it. Let's see what we can do. And we did a dumb demo, but it's something. And then I think other people are seeing that, right? Like, I remember the Funkoars' first ever show was on our record launch for Different Rules Apply. That was CS9 then, though. Same with Hospice. Like,
that was their first gig.
I got this photo of like Stu and Checkmate and Trials and that, and they're like babies. They weren't old enough to be there. Do you know what I mean? They were like 16 and shit.
Yeah.
And because we knew them like just through wherever, like Kirk knew Trials from the forum and shit, and I met up with Trials, and like we just kicked it off like straight away. Like we're just like-minded dudes who just like dumb shit. And so I did like a verse on his demo that he did. You remember like the Ugly Party or whatever? I don't know if you ever heard that.
Nah, I might have missed that.
Yeah, Charles' demo's out there somewhere, but
yeah, wow.
And I did that shit with him, and so we just all like, you kind of meet all these people, and then it's like the people who were already doing it, like the Hoods and the Mongrels as well. Like I got to give a lot of big shout out to Flack and the boys from the Mongrels, Debris. Like they were sort of instrumental in helping a lot of the other younger dudes that they knew, like, let's get it cracking. And then as those people, like us and whoever else, the Oars and stuff, started to like find their feet, then other people, and it's like, yeah, well, and so it just kind of went like this. And, I don't know what the Australian hip hop scene's like today. I'm too old and like jaded and shit. You know what I mean? Like I hear some shit on the radio, I'm like, nah, it's not for me. But it seems like, it's mainstream now, right? Like you got all these dudes and they're on commercial radio, but back then, forget about it.
Nah, man, the only spins you were getting was on Premium Blend. And
yeah, exactly. Like whatever
that.
the equivalent was around the country,
Yeah.
you just, like that's it. That's how you got out, and just word of mouth and shows and stuff. And, shows were pretty wild and raucous too. So I'm surprised that we made. You remember how many shows there used to be a lot of shows
every weekend, man.
Yeah, every weekend, and they were decent. Most of them were decent sized shows, and like considering what would go down at most of those shows, like with toilets getting bombed and just the usual kind of shenanigans. I'm surprised that. But then the next week there'd be another one. They're like, fuck it, whatever.
Because the venues
making money on the bar. On the bar.
Hip hop heads like to drink.
Exactly, man. Like, come through and spend that money. It's like, I don't care what happened.
You can pay for the damages.
Pay for that.
So then that's the second release, I guess the first official, but if you count the demo.
Yeah, I mean, if you
second piece of
your second
work.
piece of physical product that we ever pushed out into this cold hard world.
And then the third one was, or the next one was
Hero Surf.
And you signed to Obese.
Yeah, so that was like a distribution deal, I guess you'd say. So basically, we they took a little cut off the top to put it in stores because it's just easier to get them to do it, right? Like they had the octopus tentacles out there, and we didn't. So that was cool.
So is that basically all the distro deal is just a label will say, hey, we'll get your
for
album.
us it was like I don't know, I'm not
so
versed enough in this now, like who knows what it is now.
But for you guys,
for what we did was basically like we'll sign a distro thing with you, and all it is we did everything else, right? Like I'm sure there are versions where they do everything else and then they take more of your money. But for us, we did everything. Like we paid for mixing, mastering, physical product, and then we just send them boxes of CDs and vinyl, and they'd get it into stores here and there, and then kind of come back to us with money once they'd sold X amount, so they'd take however much per unit, and we'd get the rest. And so that worked for us. Like for us, it was never like we're going to make heaps of money from this. We just wanted it out. And as long as we were covering our costs and maybe making, enough that we could do another record, we're good. Most of your money comes from your shows anyway, because that's just your money.
Yeah. And then when you've signed the distro deal to Obese, and now obviously this record has more exposure.
Yeah, it's got more push out there, right?
Did you notice that, your profile nationally got bigger, or sales went?
Definitely. Because I guess the first one, it's a bit like, who are these guys? Like people who knew us would know us, like because obviously out and about and going to shows, so you kind of, you meet all the right people when you're just hanging out. But around the rest of the country, then so some people would have heard that first one, definitely. Like we got it into some shops here and there in other states. But with the second one, because Obese pushed it out, and like this was when hiphop.com was like in its prime. We're pushing it there, and community radio. Like we were never like big, you know what I mean? But we were big enough that we could go around the country and do little shows and stuff like that. Mostly we just did support acts. We were never real ambitious, you know what I mean? Like it's just like, someone like we'll get the support gig at wherever in Melbourne or something, you know what I mean? And that was good enough. We just wanted to go and do it. We never like, we're going to be musicians for a job. Well, I never was. I was just like, I just want to go do this shit.
Word. And then was that 04?
That was released in 04.
And then
according to the internet that I looked at before. According to my brain, it could have been any time.
And then the one after that was the last one.
Yeah.
That's Darker Days.
That was 11.
So there's a bit of a gap.
It was a huge gap. Yeah. So don't ask me why. I don't know why. Basically, we started working on Darker Days a long time before it came out, and it was going nowhere. It was just kind of, I don't know, I was stuck in procrastination hell. I was kind of losing my interest in rap. Not in rap, but like in just doing it, like in being a rapper or whatever. And, you know, other people are just doing other things. They've got other stuff going on in their life. And it just kind of hit this procrastination hell. And I actually was like, this is never coming out, you know. And I was like, I'm done with this, you know, not like in an angry way, but it's just like, I'm over, I'm done. And I told the guys, I was like, look, if you finish this, sweet, you know what I mean? Like, I'll do any show you need me to do. But, like, I've done all my verses. It's going nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, I reckon it's probably just time to call it.
Yeah.
But they kind of pushed through and got it done and released it. And I actually really liked that record. But it never really took off because the heart wasn't in it. Mine wasn't anyway. I'm not going to speak about other people's hearts. But.
Different time, you know, like if you step away, music, you only have to step away for 12 months.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Very quickly become irrelevant, especially when it's, you know, in that Big Bang sort of.
Shit's changing
it's
like
just
every 6 12
there's 100
months.
new groups now than there was 7 years ago. So, yeah, I mean, by the time we dropped it, I think, you know, like some of the people had been around a while, probably like, oh, yeah, cool, check that out. But it wasn't, if we'd have dropped it, you know, 6 years earlier, it probably would have been a much better idea.
Retrospect.
Yeah, that's right. Hindsight is 2020.
So I guess so. You know, the last official After Hours release was that one.
That was it.
So it's been 9 years, nearly 10.
Yep.
And you know, here we are, almost 10 years later, talking about it.
A bunch of old men.
And I guess that's, you know, in a nutshell, the After Hours, you know, run from your seat.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, you know, we were never like a massive group, but we were kind of just there for it all, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, we were one of the sort of initial crews in Certified Wise, because that was another thing that kind of just kept growing as well. Kind of started with just a few of us in terms of a few groups, not a few people, because there's quite a few people. But then it was like, oh, you know, we're down with these guys. They can get in there, and this guy's good. Let's get him in, and it was just kind of like that. And it was cool to be. It was a privilege to be a spectator to it all, I guess. Like, you know, and playing a small part, but just watching it, like, man, watching. You know, for example, like the Hoods blow up. You know, now it's just taken for granted that they're massive. But, you know, like the first time they got played on like Nova or something, you know, it was like, Hoods on Nova, you know what I mean? Like, oh shit, they're on Triple J, you know, like, it's just like, now it's,
now you hear them on the radio.
Like that is stupid, you know, like, oh, did you hear the Hoods are on Triple J? I'm like, yeah, you know, but back then it was just like, what?
Lots of people got to be there and watch it when it was all happening. But lots of people had different seats.
Yeah.
You
had a pretty good seat.
Had a very good seat to watch, the evolution of the Hoods. And so I guess what I wanted to ask is, from your seat, can you tell us how you guys first met, and then how the things that you saw just, you know, as they gradually evolved?
We all went to the same high school.
Blackwood High.
Yeah, like they were older than me, and I think Debris didn't. He was at Christie's or wherever. But
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but like they were out of school as well. You know? But we were just all in the area. Like you know, like anyone sort of my age-ish from Blackwood will tell you that all the people with a similar interest, like graph was real big back then, and hip hop and shit in that little area. So we just kind of all coalesce, you know what I mean? Like them and like all the older heads would be drinking, and us, like, you know, I'm not that much younger than them, but when you're in high school, 3 years is a pretty big
gap.
You know? So, you know, we'd be kind of sitting on the periphery, like just hanging out with them, and then, you know, you all just form like Voltron, from this Rubik's Cube of drunk kids, like freestyling in the park. Some of those nights were wild. Like they were just so cool, you know. It was something, if any of my sons said like, oh, hey, Dad, I'm going to the park to drink alcohol and rap over a cassette tape. Like, get back in school. But, you know, it was good fun. Like, we'd just be out there and just, like, have a boombox. Like, that was my claim to fame in high school. I was a kid who had the boombox. And, you know, just rap all night and stuff and just drink. And so that, you know, that's how I knew them. And, you know, it just became mates. Like, back then, like, if you were, you know, you filled those criteria, like,
You were in.
Blackwood, hip hop, you know, like, or graffiti or whatever. It's just like, bang. Like, you know, you're part of the blob. And, yeah, and then, you know, obviously as we started kind of doing a bit of music, you know, obviously the things aligned a bit more. And, you know, because we're both we're all trying to do the same kind of stuff and therefore hanging out a bit more sort of, you know, frequently and in less like sitting in a park kind of settings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, going to their gigs and, you know, seeing from the early, like I had to sneak into a lot of their early gigs because I was a kid, you know, and like their launch for, it must have been back once again, I think it was down at Flinders Tavern, or it was somewhere down that general area of the world, and I wasn't quite 18 yet, and it's like, you know, I had to like sneak in and all this other shit, and and then at Sticks, anyone my age will remember Sticks. That was like, I think it was Wednesday nights, they had open mic at Sticks, and I'd go from like high school, and you'd have to, there was a kebab, what am I, from the eastern states, a Euros place next door, and the bouncer every now and then would go like get a Euros, and that's like, you make your move, like you just bang up the stairs to Sticks and get into the open mic night and, you know, hang out with those dudes there and stuff like that. And, yeah, so that's kind of, you know, how that, I guess, you know, friendship kind of
Begun.
Yeah, evolved and whatever. And then just, yeah, I've just been watching and supporting and cheering them on ever since, you know what I mean? And it's awesome. Still am, you know, and I'll never stop. It's cool and crazy that it's been going this long.
Hasn't stopped growing.
Hasn't stopped.
Now, I guess that sort of era, that's that Blackwood Roundabout days, isn't it? Like everybody, I'm not really clued in on that because I wasn't around them, but I just keep hearing that term.
It's just like, you know, for people of a certain age and whatever, it's like there's nothing better to do. So it's like, I'll meet you at the roundabout. And all of a sudden there'd be 200 people at the roundabout. Like, what are we doing? Fuck it, let's just drink here. You know, and then all the cops would turn up and everything. And then next week, like, what are we doing? I'll meet you at the roundabout. You know what I mean?
Now, I imagine, like, you know, lots of people that were friends with them. You would have been at the Calling album launch.
Yeah.
Now,
I remember it.
I remember being there.
Maybe.
I think the Calling album launch was at Planet, and it was the first time.
Yeah, that was big.
That was it was the first time I'd ever seen a Hoods show.
That was a good show.
By that time, I'd caught up a bit. I'd heard the record. I was like, fucking wow. Like that record is just incredible.
It's a classic. I still listen to it like front to back.
It's unbelievable, man.
A week or two, I'll put it on in the car and just, you know.
Yeah. And that was the first, but prior to that, they had obviously the record before that was the one with Soul of the Beat.
Left Foot, Right Foot.
Left Foot, Right Foot.
Also a banger.
Now,
still can listen to that one.
Yeah. Now, before we even discuss the launch for the other one, the Calling, were you at the launch for Left Foot, Right Foot?
Yeah, it would have been.
Do you remember like what the numbers were like, or?
It was decent. I'm just, I don't want to like just make shit up because my memory is.
Yeah, if you don't remember, you don't remember.
I was definitely there. Might have been a Lion Arts bar, but I can't remember. I mean, it was a good show. They always had good turnouts. Like,
then the one after that.
But the Planet was like.
Yeah, that popped, didn't it? Because I just remember hearing from people who had been to a Hood show before that were telling me that was not the other ones.
No, that was sort of like, you know what I mean? Like, that was big.
That's kind of, I guess, you know, the time where shit really changed for them. I remember speaking to Stain, and he And I'd heard this story. I think maybe Howe might have said this as well, that like Nosebleed wasn't meant to originally be on that album.
Yeah, like I feel kind of uncomfortable telling other people's stories, and this is one of those things that it's might be being poorly remembered, or maybe like I've heard some rumor and now it's influenced my lizard brain. But the story goes with that one that Nosebleed wasn't going to make the cut of the album, but then people convinced Suffer to keep it on there, and obviously what happened with that song. I do remember hearing that song before the album came out and thinking it was an absolute stomper. I was we used to hang out in Debris studio a fair bit when he lived, in Aberfoyle, and so you had to hear a lot of this is what we just did, and this is what we're working on, and whatever, like just from everyone, like a lot of good stuff from just many artists. Because Debris did a lot of the recording and mixing for all sorts of people, and I remember hearing the Nosebleed there before the album, and just thinking like, man, that song that's gonna be good, that people are gonna like that, So I didn't, Suff never said to me like, oh, I hate it, I'm not gonna put it on. So wherever that rumor came from, like it wasn't me that happened to. So that's why I'm putting disclaimers out in the world. But certainly when I heard it, like I personally thought this one is going to be like the song. I didn't think it would be what it was. I just thought, people are going to hear this and while out.
Yeah.
Like it'll be, an Oz hip hop classic.
Yeah.
I didn't think it'd be, propel you into the stratosphere classic.
In that time from when they've gone from Hilltop Hoods, maybe the number one group in South Oz, to Hilltop Hoods, the number one group in the country, / not long after the number one musical group, not hip hop group, like these guys have completely smashed the boundary of rap and hip hop. Now they're considered like, they're not a pop group, but they will sell like a pop group. Like the old man will go buy a Hood CD to play in the car at the family barbecue because he might like hip hop, but he doesn't want his son to hear Snoop Dogg. You know what I mean? Like they become like.
Yeah, well, I remember there was like an ad that had a Hoods. There was a couple of ads.
Man. Yeah, man, on Channel 10.
Man, like they're on ads now.
That's some serious royalty checks right there.
That's good, man.
But yeah, so like the things that they've accomplished has been phenomenal.
Yeah. Everything that's ever happened to them has been hard work.
That's what everyone has told me that has known them from back in the day. That out of all the groups, like Hi-Fi was booking dudes for however long. He said the Hoods always were the kind of dudes that like they'll take their money and save it for new mics. Whereas in everyone else was at the bar.
Take their money and
go to the bar.
Go straight back to the bar of the place that paid them that money.
Here's your money back. What's your favourite memory that, from whether it's something that you've experienced with the Hoods or maybe you just saw something that they've achieved? Or
jeez, man, like
there's been a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have experienced a lot and they've had a lot of accolades.
Yeah. Just from honestly, going to Perth was right up there because, like, the guys in Perth were kind of hurting for people to come over, because it's a long way to go. This is back then as well. There wasn't a lot going on in terms of people touring and things. It was 99 or whatever I said it was. And, the Hoods come over and launched their record. And we all just went with them and we just had this awesome party. Record launch was sick. Met everyone, met all the Syllabolics crew and Hunter and, just all the heads from over there or, old heads and whatever. And then we all went back to Army was like, after party at my house. And he was very young at the time and he was living with his girl and she was asleep, like just no idea what's going on. We just walk in the door, like bring like half the club with us, She's like, what the fuck is this? He's like, it's all right. That was cool. Like, and that's one of the, one of the first times I kind of traveled, and it was just off the back of what those guys are doing, sitting in here like talking about stories of them. But it was a really good memory, and there's just been hundreds like that.
Well, I guess talking about Perth, and you met Hunter, and you had a pretty good relationship with Hunter. You got to know him.
Hunter's a legend, man.
Now, rest in peace. I never got to meet him, but I was well aware of who he was and what he'd done, his contribution when, all the news came out that he had cancer. One of my favorite Aussie songs of all time.
Jam Roll?
Oh, man. Like that, whatever's been sampled, first of all, the beat.
Banger.
And then the raps, obviously, and then how he sampled that TV show.
Yeah.
With that dude with the chicks that was on it.
Yeah, I can't remember this.
But like, I listened to that, and it was so not what I was into. That's how I knew it was so dope.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not even my style of raps, but this is so good. I showed so many people.
Yeah.
And that was like my first and probably biggest memory.
He was like the nicest guy ever, and he'd give you the shirt off his back. Like, he did a lot for people. I'm sure I'm not aware of a quarter of it, but he was just an absolute legend. And I remember there was a little time there where what were we doing? Me and he would just get be partying or whatever over in Perth and just ring me and Deadly and just hassle us at random hours of the night. Like, hey, Headlock, what are you doing, bro? Hey, and it'd be 2 a.m. and shit. You're like, fuck, Hunter, man, what are you doing? And he was doing this to Deadly as well. And then we used to we did a group call once, and then we would ring him, and it just became this thing. And it was. So it was this weird little period of time where me, Deadly, and Hunter were just hassling the shit out of each other at stupid hours of the night and stuff like that. And anytime he came over, it was just like, fuck yes, Hunter's here. Let's get this done. Let's get lit. And he could party with the best of them, and it was just an all round good bloke. Do you know what I mean?
So I guess being mates through music and getting to know each other on a personal level. Do you recall the phone call, the email, the moment where you?
By then I'd sort of hadn't been in touch with him as much anymore. We kind of had that fun period where we're all giving each other shit, but then as time goes on, you can't keep that shit up. No. I can't remember how I heard. It would have been someone who knew him somehow. It was just one of those, did you hear this? And that was pretty. Oh no, yeah, he came to Adelaide. He came to Adelaide and performed just after he found out. And I remember seeing him, and he wasn't himself, and I didn't know why at the time because I went out to the gig obviously to go show love, and he was he just wasn't himself. And then I think the day or next day after, someone was like, "Oh man, did you hear this, that, the other thing?" And it's like, all right, well, shit, that makes sense. And and just kind of watch. He had a family and stuff, so that was real hard to watch, man. But
did you get to speak to him after you found out?
Not after I found out, no.
So the last time you spoke to him was
at that gig, yeah.
Fuck.
Pretty sad, I should have. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's because we're not, weren't on a personal family level. I didn't. Oh, hey, bro.
Yeah, because you.
I did. I think I talked to him via text or the web or some other way. It wasn't that was my last words to him, but it wasn't a personal conversation. The last time I actually spoke to him was at that gig. So that that sucked. But the Robert Hunter Cup, that was good watching everyone come together after that, and just see how many people, that he had impacted and touched on. You know what I mean? That was a really good atmosphere. We're all just remembering him, and at that football match, the charity thing and whatever, and there was a gig. that was a cool weekend as well. So it was good to kind of everyone came together for that.
Traffic nightclub. There was I think it was a Mass MC show, or he was there.
Yeah.
Hoods were there.
Yeah.
I think After Hours were there. Like it was a certified sort of.
You're talking
like,
about when like the Loonies came through?
Yeah, and Corrupt came through with the Loonies and shit.
Yeah.
Now you were like dead center.
I was there.
Right amongst it.
Yeah.
So I would like to get your replay of that night in as much detail as you
bearing
can.
in mind, I was pretty like, as usual, I was pretty fucked up at the time. So I think it was all a misunderstanding, hey, but this is something you find out later.
Yeah.
So we had this, it was a Mass MC gig, and I can't remember exactly who was supporting, but everyone was there. It was a usual collection of people, and like the unis and the Loonies, they came through after their show, and a bunch of, I guess, the people who had been at their show as well had come through with them. And then, I don't know, it was just this weird situation, like, because obviously, like, Australian hip-hop, I don't know what it's like now, but back then it was a bit of a, like...
It's different.
Yeah, it was a bit of a testosterone fueled, like, people are, they're drinking, they're, it was a particular type of people that were at these shows. I'm not, disparaging anyone, but, it was just, that was the vibe, right? And then, so a bunch of other people who were kind of like, from the American...
And there was that American accent.
Yeah. And this was
thing
like,
going on it, yeah.
Like, you had that American accent. You're like
the beef with the Aussie versus, yeah.
So, like a bunch of... It's not that anyone was like, screw these guys from America. It was more like they're fans, It was just a different... It was like camps almost. And they came through, and it was a bit, it was just this tension, it was like something was going to pop off sooner or later. And I can't remember how it came to be that they got on stage, but they did. And Mass had a battle, it must have been Yuckmouth, I think. And some guy was filming it, I do remember that. And... I'm not going to go into who said what to who, because there was some shit that you just do not want to repeat that was said. You know what I mean? And
so hang on. So Mass MC battled Yuckmouth.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. And
I think it was Yuckmouth.
Yeah. Okay. And
it was definitely Mass MC. Though.
Yeah. And in that battle, shit was said.
Some shit was said.
Just not. And
but it wasn't. I don't know. Like, it was just one of those things. It was a battle, and. Like, it's some shit that I wouldn't say.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it got taken, this is trying to be so careful with the things that I'm saying. He said some shit he shouldn't have said. Let's just put it there. And then there was a bit of fucking on stage. Like, I don't know that particularly, because it was in a verse, and it might have been, you could take it one way or the other. But definitely it got heated on stage, and like bottle was smashed, and whatever.
Like an audience, like a person of the audience threw a
I
bottle.
want to say
shit.
someone on stage, like ready to go.
Oh wow!
No one got like stabbed or anything.
No, but like someone in the background, but still was on stage.
Yeah, it was just
like
one of those
homeboys of someone that was on stage was there.
Let's get this going.
Wow.
So it got very, and then it all had to be separated, and some shit popped off in the audience. I can't remember exactly like what. It just was one of those things, and one of the guys that was with them, I don't know who it was exactly that came through. Maybe it was Corrupt. I don't know. Basically, peacemakered the whole thing.
I heard that was Corrupt.
It was just like, look, we're here to party with you guys. Like, we didn't, mean to fuck this up, and I don't know that it was entirely their fault. They got fucked up. It was just one of those things, because they thought it was like the after party for their show.
That's right.
So that's where the miscommunication was, right? Like, but it was just this Oz hip hop gig.
Yeah.
And it felt to everyone who was there at the time that they would come in, take over, we getting on stage. You know what I mean? So it was just this kind of,
Just a misunderstanding.
Yeah, it was just a misunderstanding, but it just, the way that things were, no one knowing what was going on, and it just got real tense real quick. And there's a video out there somewhere of it. I've seen it, but not for a very long time. Yeah, and it was just, I think eventually they kind of left and it was all good. But
do you recall, I've heard of a couple of people that there was like an Aussie, oi,
yes.
oi, oi chant.
Yeah,
so at what point did that?
That would have been, well, so that, yeah, I don't want to like sort of say the wrong people's names who were rapping, but someone from their camp was on stage, and like, you know, mics got turned down straight away. They were just like, fuck these guys, mics off.
Oh,
and then
so the sound tech.
Yeah, it was someone I'm pretty sure I know who it was.
So they've let mass rap.
Yeah, fuck this guy. You know what I mean? Like, turned his mic off, and he's like, sort of, you know, you can't really hear him. And you know, the audience, and it was just kind of, it was very, you know, wasn't a good feel.
Yeah, sounds pretty tense.
Yeah, it was just like, oh man, this is about to go down.
Well, because once the crowd starts getting into it.
Yeah, but it didn't turn out as bad as it could have. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like some real bad shit happened that I know of. Maybe it did somewhere down the street. I'm not saying it did, but yeah, it's just one of those things that got real like touch and go. But then ultimately, yeah, it got sorted out, so it was all right.
The lesson. Oh yeah.